No room for your discount store kids at this party." My sister smirked, her words like a venomous dart aimed straight at my heart, but hitting my sweet, innocent daughter instead. I watched in horror as my little girl, usually so full of life and laughter, crumpled, her small shoulders shaking with sobs as she ran back into the house, those cruel words echoing in the sudden, sickening silence. My sister, Sarah, stood there, a triumphant, almost predatory glint in her eyes, while my daughter's cries tore through me. I swear, in that moment, something inside me snapped. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when I genuinely believed my relationship with Sarah, though always strained, was salvageable. We grew up together, of course, sharing parents, a home, and countless childhood memories. But that's where the similarities ended. Sarah was always the golden child, the one who excelled effortlessly in everything she touched. Academics, sports, popularity, she had it all. And she never let me forget it. I was always just of me, the quieter, more introverted sister who preferred books to parties and art to athletics. Our parents, bless their hearts, tried to be fair, but even they couldn't help but gush over Sarah's achievements, leaving me feeling perpetually in her shadow. This dynamic only intensified as we entered adulthood. Sarah married rich, or at least comfortably off, to a man named Richard who inherited a sizable family business. They lived in a sprawling house in the fanciest part of town, drove luxury cars, and vacationed in exotic locales. I, on the other hand, found love with Mark, a kind, hard-working man who was a high school teacher. We weren't struggling, not by any means, but our life was modest. We lived in a cozy two-bedroom home, saved diligently, and focused on providing a stable, loving environment for our two beautiful children, Lily, who was 8, and Tom, a rambunctious 5-year-old. The rift between Sarah and me widened considerably after I had my children. Sarah, who remained childless by choice, seemed to view my decision to have a family as a personal affront, almost as if I was deliberately choosing a life she deemed inferior. She'd make subtle digs about our frugal lifestyle, our sensible car, and my mom, Jean, fashion choices. I tried to brush it off, to be the bigger person, reminding myself that family was family, and deep down, she probably loved me. Right, wrong. Her snobbery reached new heights when it came to our kids. She adored her nieces and nephews on Richard's side children who were, in her words, well bred and financially secure. My children, however, were a different story. Lily and Tom were vibrant, intelligent, and incredibly sweet kids, but to Sarah, they were merely my kids. A constant reminder of my supposedly less than glamorous life. She never outright said anything overtly cruel in their presence, at least not until that day, but her disdain was palpable. She'd forget to invite them to family gatherings that included Richard's nieces and nephews, or if they were invited, she'd barely acknowledge them, preferring to lavish attention on the other children. Mark always urged me to confront her, to stand up for myself and our children, but I always hesitated, clinging to the hope that she'd eventually come around. I desperately wanted my kids to have a relationship with their aunt, even if she was a difficult one. The incident that finally pushed me over the edge revolved around Sarah's 40th birthday party. It was a lavish affair, as expected, hosted at a ridiculously exclusive country club. Invitations, embossed and thick, arrived weeks in advance, specifying adults only, with a small, almost imperceptible, except for the children of the hosts. I knew what that meant. It meant Richard's well-dressed nieces and nephews, aged 10 and up, were welcome, but my boisterous, perfectly normal, wonderful children were not. I felt a familiar pang of resentment, but I decided to ignore it. Mark and I rarely got a night out, so we decided to make the most of it. We arranged for a babysitter and bought Sarah an expensive gift, a designer scarf she had been coveting. We arrived at the party dressed in our best, trying to put on a brave face. The club was opulent, filled with Sarah's equally opulent friends, all air kisses and designer labels. Sarah, looking radiant in a shimmering gown, greeted us with a condescending smile. "Oh, you made it," she drawled, as if our presence was a surprise, or perhaps an inconvenience. "How are the little ones?" she asked, her tone dripping with feigned concern. I grit my teeth, responding that they were fine, enjoying a night with their sitter. As the evening wore on, the adults-only rule became increasingly laughable. There were indeed Richard's nieces and nephews, impeccably dressed and perfectly behaved, mingling politely. I saw Sarah doting on them, praising their manners, their intelligence, their expensive private schools. It was like a scene from a movie, a perfect tableau of wealth and privilege, and my kids were firmly excluded. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a familiar mix of sadness and anger. I tried to focus on enjoying the party, but it was hard. Every laugh, every clink of champagne glasses, felt like a reminder of my family's perceived inadequacy in Sarah's eyes. Mark, bless his soul, tried to distract me, telling me jokes, bringing me drinks, and reminding me that our worth wasn't measured by country club memberships. But the seed of resentment had been planted, and it was growing. A few weeks later, Sarah announced she was throwing a casual garden party at her home for close family and friends. To celebrate her actual birthday, which was a few days after the Big Bash. This time, the invitation explicitly stated, "Children welcome." My heart soared. Finally, I thought, a chance for our kids to spend time with their aunt, to feel included, to be part of the family. Lily and Tom were ecstatic. Lily spent days picking out a new dress, a pretty floral one she felt was fancy enough for Aunt Sarah's house. Tom, in his usual boisterous way, talked about all the games he would play and the delicious cake he would eat. I even baked Sarah her favorite chocolate cake, a gesture of goodwill, hoping to bridge the unspoken chasm between us. We arrived at Sarah's house that Saturday, the sun shining brightly, a perfect day for a garden party. The lawn was meticulously manicured, dotted with elegant white tents and tables laden with gourmet food. Children's laughter drifted from a corner of the garden where a bouncy castle and a clown were entertaining a small group of kids. My heart swelled with a mix of anticipation and relief. Maybe, just maybe, this was a turning point. We walked towards the back garden, Lily clutching my hand, her eyes wide with excitement. Tom, ever the adventurer, darted ahead. Sarah spotted us and strode over, a tight smile on her face. "You came," she said, her tone flat, not exactly welcoming. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. "Happy birthday, Sarah, and look, Lily and Tom are so excited." Lily, usually shy, piped up, "Happy birthday, Aunt Sarah. I love your pretty flowers." She held out a small, carefully drawn card she had made for her. Sarah barely glanced at it, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. "Yes, well," she began, her gaze sweeping over my children, lingering on Lily's floral dress which, in hindsight, probably looked like it came from a department store sale rack compared to the designer outfits on the other children. Then came the words, those cruel, unforgettable words, "Listen, my name." She said, lowering her voice slightly, but not enough, "I appreciate you coming, but you know, this is a special party, a bit more exclusive. There's really no room for your discount. Store kids at this party," She smirked then, a truly hateful, triumphant smirk, as if she had just won some invisible battle. My blood ran cold. I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach. I saw Lily's face crumple, her bright eyes filling with tears as Sarah's words, sharp and clear, sliced through her innocence. "Discount, store kids," she whispered, her voice trembling, her little hand letting go of mine. Before I could even process what was happening, before I could utter a single word in defense, Lily turned and ran, a heartbroken sob tearing from her throat. She fled back towards the house, her pretty floral dress a blur against the manicured lawn. Tom, who had been a few steps ahead, stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes wide with confusion and a nascent anger that mirrored my own. So that's the situation I was in. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had just verbally attacked my child, rendering her heartbroken and humiliated, all for the sake of her warped sense of social. Standing, I stood there, frozen, the sounds of the party now a muffled, distant hum. My child was crying because of my sister. My sweet, sensitive Lily. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have walked away? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have unleashed every ounce of fury building inside you? My vision blurred, not with tears, but with a white, hot rage I had never experienced before. The years of subtle put-downs, the constant feeling of inadequacy, the quiet resentment, it all coalesced into a molten core of anger. I looked at Sarah, her smirk still plastered on her face, completely oblivious, or perhaps uncaring, of the devastation she had just wrought. Mark, who had witnessed the entire exchange, was already halfway to the house, his face grim, to comfort Lily. I was on my own, facing my sister, the architect of my child's pain, and in that moment I knew I couldn't hold back any more. The bigger person was dead. I took a deep breath, and the words, fueled by years of unspoken hurt, flowed out like a torrent. "Sarah," I said, my voice low and dangerously calm, "you have just hurt my daughter, my beautiful, kind, intelligent daughter, and you did it with a smile on your face." Her smirk wavered slightly, perhaps detecting the shift in my tone. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she scoffed, trying to regain her composure. "She's just being sensitive." "Sensitive?" I scoffed back, louder now, enough for a few near, by guests to turn their heads. "You just called her a discount store kid. What kind of monster says that to an 8-year-old? I walked closer to her, invading her personal space, something I would never have dared to do before. "Let me tell you something, Sarah. My children, my discount store kids, as you so eloquently put it, are worth more than every single expensive trinket you own, more than this entire pretentious party, and certainly more than you will ever be." Her face began to pale, the smirk finally gone, replaced by a look of bewildered shock. "How dare you?" she hissed, trying to project an air of authority that was rapidly crumbling. "This is my party, and these are my children," I retorted, my voice rising. "And they are not discount store kids. They are loved, they are cherished, they are happy, and they have a mother who will defend them against your cruelty, against your pathetic need to constantly put others down to make yourself feel superior." By this point, several guests were openly staring. Richard, Sarah's husband, came hurrying over, a look of alarm on his face. "Is everything all right, ladies?" he asked, attempting to intervene. "Everything is far from all right, Richard," I said, my gaze still locked on Sarah. "Your wife just told my daughter there was no room for her discount store kids at this party, and you know what? She's right. There isn't, because my children deserve to be surrounded by kindness, not by your wife's toxic snobbery." I paused, letting my words hang in the air, watching Sarah's face contort with a mixture of anger and humiliation. Then I turned my attention to the immaculate cake I had baked, sitting untouched on a pristine white table. With a sudden, decisive movement, I grabbed the cake, lifted it, and with all the force I could muster, I slammed it upside down onto the pristine white tablecloth directly in front of Sarah. Chocolate frosting and crumbled cake splattered everywhere, creating a delicious, messy masterpiece of defiance. A gasp went through the small crowd that had gathered. Sarah shrieked, a high-pitched, indignant sound. "My cake!" she wailed, as if the cake was the most important thing in that moment. "Consider that my birthday present to you, Sarah," I said, my voice dripping with icy contempt. "A fitting end to a truly disgusting display of your character." I turned, ignoring Richard's stunned face and Sarah's furious tears, and walked directly towards the house. Mark was inside, comforting Lily and Tom, who were both still upset but somewhat calmed. "We're leaving," I said to Mark, my voice firm. "And we are never coming back." He nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and understanding. We gathered our children, who were now looking at me with wide, slightly bewildered, but also admiring eyes, and walked out of that house, away from the judgmental stares and the toxic atmosphere, and never looked back. The aftermath was exactly as I expected. Sarah, through a furious text message an hour later, declared me dead to her. Our parents, caught in the middle, were heartbroken. They tried to mediate, but I was unyielding. I explained, calmly but firmly, that I would not tolerate anyone, especially not my own sister, verbally abusing my children. I told them that while I loved them, I would not expose my kids to Sarah's cruelty ever again. Mark stood by me, unequivocally. He was proud of me for finally standing up for myself and our children. It wasn't easy. Family ties are hard to sever, and there were moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I had gone too far. But then I would remember Lily's tear-streaked face, Sarah's hateful smirk, and the anger would return, reaffirming my decision. Lily and Tom, after the initial shock, seemed to understand. They saw their mother defend them, fiercely and without hesitation, and that, I believe, meant more to them than any fancy party. We found new ways to celebrate, creating our own traditions, focusing on the love and respect within our small, happy family. So, here I am, months later. Sarah and I haven't spoken since that day. Our parents still try, occasionally sending hopeful messages, but I remain firm. Sometimes I still get a pang of sadness for the sister I once had, or rather, the sister I wished I had. But then I look at my happy, confident children, thriving in an environment free from judgment and snobbery, and I know I made the right choice. My kids are not discount store kids. They are priceless, and I will always choose them. Like this video if you were on my side in this whole mess. Subscribe for more stories like this, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole ordeal in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.